Thanks everyone for being here. And as Craig said, I'm Steve Paxton. I'm retired law enforcement after 26 years, here with Bruce Adams, and we're going to be talking to you about our Quartermaster system. Going to give you kind of an overview of our Quartermaster asset and inventory tracking solution. And you can use Quartermaster to track virtually every asset in your inventory, including generic consumable assets and unique inventory. Quartermaster can also be used to keep track of your fleet, including your patrol cars and your unmarked vehicles and special vehicles. Anything that you are that you're driving in your fleet can be tracked with Quartermaster as well. I'm going to start by providing a brief overview of our company, File and Queue, and then we're going to jump into kind of a high-level overview of Quartermaster, and then I'm going to kind of round everything up by diving into a live demo so you can see how it actually works. And be sure to share your questions as we go along. You can do that in the chat window, and we'll try to answer those at the end of the webinar. And I think Bruce might even be able to chat back to you if you have something that you want to ask. All right, let's get started. We'll talk a little bit about us here. We're called File and Queue, and we have a number of different solutions, as Craig mentioned, talking about Quartermaster, but we also have Evidence on Queue and File on Queue. Digital on Queue, which is our digital evidence management system. We've been in business since 1996, and we've partnered with close to 400 public safety organizations in North America. And our biggest customer is Homeland Security. We've got a few accounts with them. And then I think I just brought in one of our smallest customers in Oregon. They have 4 officers. So we work with customers that spans the entire range of police departments in North America. The average police department has 12 officers, so we're working with departments of all sizes. Some notable departments that we have as partners are Washington, D.C. Metro Police. I was actually back there 2 weeks ago working with them. On the West Coast, we have San Diego and San Francisco, and Los Angeles Police Department just came in, and Portland Police Department, and then many others along the way there. So this is kind of an overview of some of our customers. We really enjoy working with customers of all sizes because they come to us with lots of different problems, and it allows us to kind of shape the direction we take our software based on some of the unique needs that we come across. And software is really the bottom line for us. We're a software company, but we also, what's really important to us is the support that we provide. So great software alone isn't going to last very long in terms of having a good experience if you don't have good support. So that is something really important to us, and we audit ourselves on a regular basis. Our support staff is audited every time they go out and talk to a customer, and they have nearly 100% positive rating every time that they reach out to our customers, almost every time. And we also every year reach out to our customers and find out if they would recommend us, how likely they would be to recommend us. And in 2021, it was 98% would recommend us, and then just this last year, it bumped up to 99%. And this is really important to us, as I mentioned before, because we are a very relational company. We care about our customers, and we get a lot of our business from referrals. The police departments that let us know about, partner police departments that let us know about agencies in their area that are struggling and need our solutions to help them out. So that's just a brief overview of us. I'm going to talk about Quartermaster, kind of a top-down overview, and then we'll jump into that live demo. Before we do, though, I'm going to ask Craig to open up a poll question. We just have one in this webinar, and just to kind of find out what everybody's using to track their assets. Could you start that poll for me, Craig?
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to pull that poll up. You guys will be able to interact with that right on your screen. So I'm going to launch that poll right now. And you can take a look at that. And what do you use to track your agency's assets? And I'll be curious here to see what people are using. This helps us kind of gauge this training and get a feel for what everybody's using or not using. And let those results keep coming in. We're at about 50%, so I'm going to let a few more of you that are either sleeping or just waking up go ahead and pull in for us. Some of you may not know. All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show those poll results with everyone. I'm going to close that out. All right, close poll, and I'm going to share results. So, Steve, I'm not sure if you're seeing that, but 41% don't know. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So we do run across that. Quite a few agencies don't know, or they don't have a system. And the other one that's pretty common, at least when I'm talking to police departments, is Excel. A lot of departments using Excel to process or to manage their inventory, which works. I mean, it's not a very efficient system, but it's something. And so then we also have 12% not tracking it at all. So that's what this is all about. So Quartermaster is built on the same platform as our Evidence on Q evidence management system. It's a no-code platform. We have several patents for it. We have a very simplified workflow built into both solutions, which allows you to search and query your evidence or your inventory right on the main screen here. You can do all of the transferring of items and scanning, barcode scanning and transferring items, printing labels, and doing your inventory check-in and check-out. Almost all of that happens on this main screen with some small exceptions, which I'll show you in our live demo. It's really important because it helps make using Quartermaster really easy, especially if you're a first-time user or if you don't use it very often. It's very easy to actually use the system. And then along with that, we have a not an out-of-the-box experience. And so we provide Quartermaster to you with basically a blank canvas. And so every one of our police departments has a unique profile or home screen, and we work with you to develop that home screen so that it's capturing information that's important to you. And so depending on what kind of inventory assets that you want to track, we'll work with you to set up that home screen. And then we can also help you update that screen. You can actually update your screen yourself. You can add fields, take away fields anytime very, very quickly. And we use specialized field types to do that so that you're capturing really good, clean data. So that when you query your system, you're able to find the assets in inventory very quickly, and you're not missing items of inventory. For example, if you had open fields in all your field types, you would potentially have all uppercase or all lowercase. People might enter the inventory at misspelling it. And so with these field types, we're able to capture really good, clean data, which helps you build reports and also do really good queries when you're looking for what you have. So that's kind of a brief overview. And I'm going to jump into a live demo. I'll show this to you in a little bit more detail coming up. Before I do, though, I want to just kind of talk about the two main types of categories of inventory that most agencies are dealing with, just so we are all on the same page. The first type is unique assets. And this is, pretty common knowledge. The kind of things that we would issue to officers or staff members are kind of one-on-one that they're going to have for the duration of their career or for a long term. Things like firearms, rifles, things like you see up here, ballistic vests. These are all unique items. Typically, they're going to have a serial number associated with them, and that's going to be a good indicator that's a unique item. But you don't necessarily have to, note serial numbers with these items. It can just be, for example, an iPhone. You might want to make a unique item that you issue to officers, and maybe you don't note the serial number. And that's in contrast to the other category, which are the generic types of inventory and assets that get issued out to your staff. So generic assets are those things that are typically consumable. And in most cases, not always, but in most cases, they're not going to have a serial number. And they're going to be the kind of thing where officers are going to come back to you again and again and want to get refreshed on that. So with Quartermaster, when we bring in generic assets into the system, you'll have a quantity on hand. So for example, if we're looking at Narcan, you might issue, let's say you have a department of 10 officers and you issue all of your officers 10 individual Narcan nasal sprays to each one of those officers. You would have 10 out in the field. And then let's just say you have 10 in your Quartermaster office, and you could have quantity on hand of total of 20 for all of the Narcan that you have in your system. And then maybe you have a reorder point of 5. So when you get down to 5 or less, you can query the system and it'll let you know that it's time to reorder that consumable. So that is the main difference between the two here is unique assets, anything that you want to designate as unique, kind of one-on-one. And then we have the consumable items, which we call generic assets. And typically they're associated with a UPC code. You can use the UPC code on the box that comes with the product if you want, or you can generate your own UPC code to track that. And that's basically mainly how we track those items. And then there's a third category that's sort of on its own, and that's fleet. And you can actually track fleet within your Quartermaster system as a unique asset. Of course, it has a license plate number, it's got a VIN number, probably a car number. And so you can track the vehicle assignment or where the cars are located, whether they're take-home cars or not, damage and that kind of thing. All that can be tracked as unique items within Quartermaster. Another option for larger departments especially is that you can set up a second system for fleet management. And so if you want to track your vehicles in real kind of granular detail, it may make sense to have a second Quartermaster system for your fleet to have separately, just so that it's easier to find things and you're not commingling your cars with all of your inventory and assets. It really kind of depends on how you want to do it. And within our Quartermaster system, we have, just like with evidence on Q, we have very detailed reporting that you can pull from there. We use Crystal reports to build custom reports, unique reports, depending on what you're looking for when you're doing the queries. On the left here, I have a history report, which just shows the history of the item that we're looking at here, which is an LiDAR. And this is just a kind of an interesting example. Imagine your officers are checking out a LiDAR, or maybe they're checking out other equipment at the beginning of their briefing, their shift. They could come out and check it out in the Quartermaster system, and then at the end of the shift, they can check it back in. And this just gives us a detailed history of all of that in and out. And it's good just for maintenance, knowing how often and who's using the equipment. But then if equipment gets lost, it's also, of course, very helpful to be able to track down where it may end up getting lost. Maybe it's in the trunk of somebody's patrol car. On the right are some examples of some checkout receipts. The officer at the top there has just been brought into a bicycle patrol, and so he's been issued some apparel and he signed for that. And at the bottom, same thing for another officer, damaged shirts being replaced, and or a pair of damaged pants are being replaced, and a new shirt that's a little bit larger for that officer. So these reports are a really handy, quick way to find out at a glance what you have and provide to administrators when you're doing forecast and planning. So with these detailed, unique reports, we can also export, another way is export your assets out into an Excel spreadsheet format. And I'm not an Excel power user, but even with just a tiny bit of knowledge of how to use Excel, you can do a lot of really powerful things with Excel. You can build charts and graphs. On the left there, just out of my demo system, I pulled a list of all of the officers who have sidearms assigned to them. And so I was able to sort that, and I can have the serial number and the make and model of the firearm. We could even include information about maintenance and that kind of thing. On the right, I have an example of how we can quantify the value or the money spent, purchase price for the firearms. So the sidearms and the standard sidearm Glock 40 caliber in the middle there, and then the rifles on the right. So super powerful. So that's exporting out your records to Excel. We can also kind of do the flip of that, which is importing assets from an Excel spreadsheet into Quartermaster system. And so the way you might use this is you have, in this case, maybe Motorola provides you with an Excel spreadsheet when they provide you with all the radios during the purchase process, or maybe you build that so that you have it, so that you know who you're issuing the radios to. Or maybe you're one of those departments that's already using Excel to manage and track your assets. We can import those records into Quartermaster from your existing Excel spreadsheet. Bruce, are you there? Could you comment a little bit on how this process works when we're tying up the data back and forth?
Yes, sir. So with this built-in tool, you as the end user can do your own imports too. So if you, like this example here with these portable radios, if you're replacing your old fleet of portable radios with a whole new batch, and the manufacturer can provide that data to you in an Excel spreadsheet or a text file or a CSV file, you can build your own import design using this tool that you can see in the middle of the screen here, this mapping tool that lets you actually map field for field from your Excel spreadsheet data right to the particular field that you want that data to go into. For example, if column H in my spreadsheet is, or I guess in this example, column F in my spreadsheet is my serial number, and I want that serial number for each new record to be created for these new records or these new radios to go into my serial number field. Over on the left side of that little window is all my file on queue fields, and over on the right side is the columns in my spreadsheet. And by just simply dragging and dropping from one side over to the other, you see that little mapping line appear. And then when you run your import, the data from the spreadsheet goes into those fields, and with the snap of a finger, you now have 30 brand new radio records instantly into your system. Saves a lot of time. You could clone or multi-clone 30 radio records, but then you'd have to go to each one individually and put in the unique serial number on each record, which you could do, but this is a much quicker way. And if you foresee, your setup is we replace our radios every 3 years. When you build that import design, you save it, you give it a name, and the next go around in 3 years, you just reuse that same import design.
Great, thanks, Bruce. So one of the things too is, and I haven't really touched on this, but we track all of the assets in Quartermaster with barcodes. And we also track their location with barcodes. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, are we applying stickers to assets and inventory? And with Quartermaster, the answer is really not very often. You can certainly apply barcode stickers to certain inventory, but as you can imagine, you can't really do that effectively on apparel. You can't do things, you can't really stick barcode labels on handcuffs or on your sidearm or on your duty belt. And so even though you can apply the sticker to the asset itself in most cases, we still use barcode labeling or the number to track the asset wherever it's at. And we do that too with locations. So we have the asset that's getting tracked, and we also have the location that we set up within your system. We help you set this up, all of the key locations in your police department or your agency. And you can kind of think of this a little bit like when you're purchasing something on Amazon, or maybe something you purchased and you're having it shipped over to you via FedEx. I'm in the Seattle area, so if I purchase something in Florida, I can get online and watch as that item is shipped over from Florida. It starts in Miami, and then it goes to Georgia, and then it moves up to Tennessee, and then maybe it's in South Dakota. Eventually, it makes its way to Billings, Montana, and then it gets near me in Spokane, Washington. We can do the same thing with the location barcoding that we do here. So if we have a new officer, and we'll use the example of Officer Kristen Hudson. She's been to the academy, and she's back, and now she's ready to have some equipment issued to her. She reports to the Quartermaster office, and the Quartermaster hands out to her a vest, a ballistic vest, a duty belt with keepers, and maybe she gets some handcuffs and a handcuff case, a gun holster, a taser holster, an iPhone, and then some apparel. Maybe she gets some long sleeve shirts, two short sleeve shirts, some pants, and then he also gives her a badge. So when she goes to the Quartermaster office, all of that equipment is located at the Quartermaster office within the system. But when she is issued that equipment and she takes custody of that equipment, it is now in her possession. So if we were to search for that iPhone or that badge, it would show that it belongs to her. It's in her possession. She's in control of it. So from there, she's sent over to the radio shop to get her radio. So she heads over to the radio shop, meets with an officer there. He issues out a unique Motorola radio with a serial number that starts out as being located in the radio shop, but then it now is in her possession. From there, she heads over to the range to qualify. She meets with the range master, who also has access to the Quartermaster system. The range master provides her with 3 boxes of range ammo because she's going to qualify, and she's also going to practice. And when she's finished doing that, after a few hours, the range master will note that those 3 boxes have been consumed out of the system. So if he has several cases of ammo, and each case has, let's say, 25 boxes of ammunition in them, he's got 50 boxes, and now he has three less. So now he's down to 47 boxes of range ammo after it's been consumed. And before Kristen leaves, the range master provides her with or hands her a box of duty ammo to put in her sidearm when she starts work with her field training officer, and the same process happens there with that. So as I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to apply the labels to all of your apparel. One thing that a lot of departments do is they create a control notebook with all of their locations, their key locations. So your range master may have a control notebook, or maybe even a control sheet just on the wall with the range, the armory, and some other key locations and items within that that's printed out on that sheet so that he can scan them very, very quickly. And so you can also manually move them too. So manually moving an item or transferring an item, I should say, is nearly as quick as scanning that item with a barcode scanner. And this is the equipment we're talking about here. So on the right is a wireless barcode scanner. Typically, most departments are going to have 1 or 2 of these, at least if they're a smaller, medium-sized department. It sits in a cradle. It's a USB attached device, but it allows you to have 100 to 150 feet. It's wireless, you can definitely walk around an environment like a Quartermaster office or a range armory and do your scanning. And on the left is a signature pad so that you can sign items or have items signed out to officers, so you can have your officer sign that. You can provide them with a receipt with that digital signature, and this allows you to go almost entirely paperless, and really you could go paperless with this hardware. All right, well, let's jump over to our live demo here. I'm going to jump into Quartermaster, and here's the application. This is a Windows-based application that has a SQL database on the back end. And I saw a question about fleet. If you are going to track your fleet within Quartermaster, you could do that with these fields here. And as I said before, we can set this up with you so that you have all the fields that you think you need, and you can add more as you go along. Over here, kind of towards the right side of the application, you can see I'm tracking cars. So I can come in here and I can pull up all of my assigned patrol cars, and it's going to give me a query result back. And down at the bottom here, if you can see my cursor, my mouse pointer, I have 1 of 8 that came back on this. So I'm able to see that there are 8 assigned patrol cars, and so I can go one by one and look at each one of these patrol vehicles in kind of this detailed overview and see who that's assigned to. So let's do a quick kind of walkthrough of what you're seeing here, because there's a lot here, and I just want to quickly get everybody oriented. The blue line is kind of our demarcation here. So at the top here, of course, we have our toolbar, and you can use Quartermaster to create shortcuts. So if you're a Quartermaster and you have different things that you do on a regular basis, you can bring those shortcuts out so those activities are quick and easy to access. Down below is our barcode number right here, and this is the number that's associated with the barcode that we would print on the label. And then just below that is a quick view description of what we're looking at. So here we're looking at a police car. It's a marked police car, and then below that we can see who it's assigned to. So here's the officer and the badge number for this officer. We can see the date and time that this item was last assigned to this officer, and then we can also see the person who assigned it. So that's me, that's my badge number. You can set up your system with the badge number, or you can even do the first initial, last name if you want, depending on how you want to put your users in the system. Now, down below the blue line is the area where you can tailor the screen to have all of the different field types that you like to include. And as I mentioned before, it's not an out-of-the-box experience. You can come in at any time and you can update that. You can remove fields. You can add new fields. If you find you want to start tracking something that you hadn't been tracking before, it's very easy to add a new field to your home screen. And so with cars as the example that we have up here, I have vehicle category pulled up. This is one of those examples of a unique item. Now I am tracking a license plate number, and I'm tracking a card number. So this is a little bit like tracking the serial number for a unique item. I'll pull up another example here. We'll pull up firearms. I'm going to do a query of all of our firearms. And as I mentioned before, it's a simplified workflow, so we can query and do searches right from this main home screen, and we can also enter new inventory into the system from this home screen. So it makes it very, very easy. So right now I'm just in query mode, and it allows me to pull up all of my firearms. Down at the bottom right, this is where you see how many items pulled up in that query or result return. I have 173 firearms that pulled up, and so I can go through them one by one and review them. Down at the bottom, I have, in my particular demo database, I have the vendor information, so we can track that, and I can see the purchase price and warranty information, purchase order information as well, information about the serial number. All the pertinent information is right here available to me. And so again, I can go through that one by one, but that's a little bit tedious, especially if you have over 100 items that you're looking at. In this case, I have 173. So another way to look at this is we can go into browse view mode, and I can get kind of almost like an Excel spreadsheet look at all the firearms that I just pulled up in my search. So I can go through and look at them in a little bit more kind of a broad detail. I can also sort by location or by serial number or by any number of other categories that are here, gun make, caliber, that kind of thing. And as I sort by location, I can see that 3 of these or 4 of these Glock firearms have been issued to officers. Now, this is just a demo database. Of course, if I had that many firearms, I'd probably have a lot more officers. but I'm gonna go ahead and search for those. I'm just gonna select those and search for those. And what this does is it narrows down my query to one of 4. So now I am looking in more detail at just the ones that I'm interested in looking at. So again, at the top here above the blue line, I can see that the person that it's been issued to, this is Officer Hogan, date and time, and who it was issued to, and exactly what it was. This is a Colt AR-15 that's been issued to this person. So that's another example. Let's do another one that is unique here. Let's go through and look at vests. We'll do ballistic vests because that's a unique item as well within my system. So we'll search for those, and you can search by single fields, or you can do multi-field search as well. So you could plug in, for example, firearm and Glock, and I could search for all my Glock firearms that way. So here I have the return on ballistic vests. Down at the bottom right, I can see that I'm looking at 204 vests in my system. And again, I can see who these are issued to. I can go item by item and look at them that way, just like this here. And that's a lot to look at. So let's go into browse view mode, and we can kind of look at it a little bit more overview look at all the vests that are inside the system here. And again, I only have one person assigned to a vest in my system, but I could query this and I could narrow my search down. And I have some information in here that I think is important. One of the things I know about ballistic vests is that they expire generally after 5 years, that they need to be replaced. And so I have an issue date down here kind of in the middle. That gives me a heads up of when this was issued out to the officer, so that I can track when it's time to set her up with a new vest. And so we can do that with custom queries. We have custom queries built into, and you can set up queries so that you can find real detailed information. I have a query set up for expired equipment. And so I can come in here and I can run this query, and I have several items in here. Not just vests, but other items that I'm tracking for being expired or not. And so if I want to here, I can select vests, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to push out to the end of this year, because I want to see what vests in my system are going to expire in the next year, so that I can reach out to that officer. I can let him know, hey, it's coming up and we need you to come in. We need to have you resized, and we need to get it ordered as soon as possible. So I do that search. And in this case, if we look down at the bottom right, I just have one item that pulled up. So I just have one vest in my system that's going to be expired coming up, and I can see that date right here on my screen. So super handy way to keep track of your inventory when it comes to things that have an expiration date. Okay, so that is the unique items. Just some examples of some unique items with serial numbers or with license plate numbers, that kind of thing. The other type of item, the category we were talking about before, are generic items, and typically those are going to have a UPC code. And so let's do a quick search for some items that are like that here. I'm gonna pull up, I think Narcan is something I can use as an example here. So I'm gonna pull up Narcan. And these are a little bit different, because what you'll notice here at the top, and these are how my system is set up here, I have the UPC code here. And again, that UPC code can be the code that's on the box when you purchase Narcan. You could enter it for the first time with that same code, and then when you scan the box, the UPC code on the box, it'll pull up that record. Or you could actually use whatever UPC code you want. You could make it a string of numbers. You could actually make it kind of meaningful. I could come in here and I could actually make this mean something like Narcan, or I could use 1, 2, 3 to go with that. I can make that whatever I want and save that, and that can be my UPC code. Now, next to that, you have a quantity on hand, and you also have a reorder point here. So let me pull this back up again. Whoops. Go back to Narcan here, and you'll see that our quantity on hand is 40. We have 40 on hand, and our reorder point is 10. So that's going to let me know that when we get below 10, that it's time to reorder more, so that we have that on hand. I want to show you also another supply type in my system that I have set up here, and I have it set up, I think it's going to try cameras here. Actually, I think it's up here. So I'm searching for cameras. Now, this is one of those types of assets that you could designate as a unique item. As you see here, I have a UPC code and a quantity on hand. Now, the reason I set this up as a generic asset is because in my experience, cameras oftentimes get lost, they get broken, sometimes they get swapped with other officers. And so I kind of looked at this as a consumable item. And these little Coolpix cameras are about $125. They're not very expensive. So I'm treating this as a consumable item. So if a camera breaks, officer's out at a crime scene and it's raining and his camera stops working, he comes in and wants a replacement, I can issue that out very quickly. And so my quantity on hand is 42 for this police department, and then I have a reorder point of 10. All right, Bruce, I'm gonna ask you, do you have anything you want to add to those two categories before I move on?
No, I think you've covered it very well, Steve.
All right, good. Well, let's kind of look at this in a more practical way. One of the things I didn't show you or touch on here are these two buttons here. Right now we are on the on cue screen, which is this main screen. And then we also have the Quartermaster screen right here. And so with the Quartermaster screen, when I head over to that area of the system here, it allows me to assign items and to distribute items. So assigning items would be kind of a one-on-one with an officer. Distributing items would be if you were going to assign an item, let's say camera to, or cameras to multiple officers, or maybe you have 5 new recruits, they're at the range, they're going to get issued a firearm for the first time and some ammunition. You could distribute that all at once using the distribute tab. And then over here on the left is how we would bring items back into the systems that have been issued out to officers. So you maybe have a retiring officer, you have somebody that's moving on, you can have items returned using this portion of the Quartermaster system. And it might even be that items are broken or they need to be consumed. The Narcan's been used. You can use this as how you track bringing that back in so that you can reduce that quantity on hand. It lets you know that you've used that up. So let's go ahead and try some practical examples here. I got a barcode scanner in my hand, and we're gonna go ahead and assign some items to this new officer, Kristen Hudson. So I'm going to scan her in my control notebook. And again, I could just as easily browse to her, just like this here, almost as fast. So depending on the size of your police department and depending on who's doing the work, if you're a quartermaster, you're probably gonna have a scanner and then make it really quick and fast to issue equipment. So let's go ahead and issue some stuff to her. So I'm gonna go ahead and issue her a badge. And we're gonna give her a vest and a gas mask, and we're gonna give her a standard issue Glock and an iPhone. All of these items are unique items within my Quartermaster system. Now down here, we have the option to prompt for signature, and we can also print as receipt. I'm gonna uncheck those for this demo, but this is where you could have that officer sign for those items with that signature pad, either a wired or wireless signature pad. So we'll go ahead and assign those to her, just like that. And now those items have been assigned to Officer Hudson. So let's go back to the on cue screen. And one of the things we can do is we can go and search for her. Now let's just take a peek at what she has assigned to her. So I'm selecting Officer Hudson from my system here. And down at the bottom right, we can see that she has 8 items assigned to her. So again, this is a demo and she's a new officer. She doesn't have a lot of equipment yet. And we can go through really just item by item if we want to and take a peek at what she has. Or we can go into browse view mode and I can look and see, okay, this is what she has here. I have a gas mask. She's been assigned a vehicle, it looks like. This is her standard issue or her iPhone that gets issued to all the officers. This is her radio. And if we were looking for something specific, maybe I'm the armorer, and I want to look at the handgun that she has, I could refine my query, my search, and pull it up in kind of a detail view here. And one of the things too that you have access to with Quartermaster are these features that are behind these tabs on this main home screen. And when you see something lit up in red with these tabs, that means there's some information behind it. So we have the notes tab as an example here. And the armorer is using the notes tab here to document the maintenance of the firearm. Now that's just an example. I mean, you don't have to necessarily do it that way. You could also use it to document every time Officer Hudson qualifies if you wanted to keep track of that. And all of these notes, they can't be erased. They're hard coded into the system. And so they go along with the history of that asset that you're tracking. Over here to the right at the very end, we also have a documents tab that's lit up in red that lets me know that there's some documents behind here. So what you can do, Quartermaster, is you can add virtually any kind of digital file and associate it with that record. So again, we're looking at this Glock handgun, and all you do is you drag and drop that digital file right here on the bullseye. And in this case, I have a couple of JPEGs and some PNG files, it looks like. So you could put maintenance records in here. You can put photographs in here, Adobe Acrobat files, documents, anything that you think is worth having associated with this file. So these are maintenance records and some images associated with this particular asset. All right, so I wanted to show you this process in reverse now. So I'm going to go back to the Quartermaster screen, and I'm going to, Officer Hudson is back, and she is going to return her iPhone. It's not working. So I'm going to first select where we're at, because we got to tell the system where are we at in this case. So I'm at the Quartermaster, and I'm receiving this from Officer Hudson. So she is at the Quartermaster office, and I'm going to scan the iPhone, or I could plug in the barcode number directly if I wanted to. And we can come in here and we hit receive, and that item now is back in the system. We go back and do a search for Officer Hudson, and that iPhone is no longer in her possession, so it's no longer there. So let's go ahead and search for that iPhone real quick here. So there's our iPhone. I just scanned it. We've got the serial number, or it could be the IMEI number that's associated with that. We can see now that this is at the Quartermaster office. It's no longer in her possession. If I want to go and look at the history of this asset, I can pull up one of these detailed reports. And as you can see, I've used this as an example with some of my demos there. She keeps giving it back, and she keeps giving it back to Quartermaster, and we keep giving it back to her. So here is all of the history of the back and forth with that phone. If she had signed for it, we would also have that digital signature captured within here. Okay, let's go ahead and assign Officer Hudson some consumable items. These are items that have a quantity on hand. So we'll start by scanning her, and then I'm going to go in and assign a few things to her. We'll start with some pants, and you can see here we have a quantity on hand of 22. I'm going to assign 2 to her and give her a patrol cap. She just needs 1. Give her some short sleeve shirts. Give her 2 of those. Long sleeve shirts, we'll give her 2 of those. And let's give her a patrol belt. And I don't know if you can see that, it's kind of small here, but in my system, I have the patrol belt set up with keepers and 2 handcuff cases. So I've added those as kind of one item. We'll do Narcan, and it looks like I'm out of stock on that one. So we'll go to the flashlight. We'll issue 1 flashlight, and let's just do 1 more item. Let's do a tourniquet. We'll give her 2 of those, 1 for her person, 1 for her car. And again, we can have her sign for those, but I'm not going to do that in this case. I'm going to assign those to her. And then we can go in and we can search for those. We can do a search like we did before on all of the assets in her possession. I could come in here and I'm going to go ahead and do a quick query of her. And we can see she's got 13 items in her possession down the bottom right. We can go and browse and look at those in kind of more detail if we want to refine our search. We can also pull up an asset list report here if we want to. And we can generate this report that lets us kind of a nice PDF printable report that we could send over to another part of the police department, or maybe a sergeant who wants to know, or maybe an administrator. That's super handy. Now we'll go ahead and do this again in reverse just so you can see how this works. This is kind of interesting because when we return some of these items, we want to bring them back into the system, and we have the option of bringing them in as reusable. A lot of police departments have a place where they keep piles of clothes and jackets and hats, and if you have a Quartermaster system, it can be really challenging to be able to reuse that equipment. And I know at my police department, it was a place that we went to. It was actually at the property room. It was a sort of a place outside the property room, near the property room, where you could go and you could just kind of go through piles of stuff and hangers of jackets, and if it fits you, you could have it. It's not a real efficient way to do it. So let's start with scanning her, and then we're going to scan the location that we're at. And let's go ahead and return some items here. So I'm going to return the hat. Doesn't fit. So it shows she's assigned 1. And so I'm going to show it as returned and not consumed. We can reuse that. And let's do the tourniquet. And let's say that she is, do the flashlight here. So that she has 1 assigned to her. Let's say she was out in the field, she dropped it, it was raining, and now she wants to get a new one. So we're going to show that consumed. I'm going to add that. I can hit received. And so what that does is it reconciles that equipment. So it's no longer assigned to her. It is now, we've got one that's consumed and we have one that's been returned to be reissued to another officer that comes in. And again, I don't need to show you, but we can come in and I can do a search and show that that equipment is no longer assigned to her. So one other example I wanted to show you as we round third base on our webinar here is I want to show you an example of how you could use this to issue equipment to officers on a temporary basis. So there are a lot of police departments, whether you're a large department or small department, that officers come in for a briefing and there's equipment that they may want to check out. It might be a PBDT test, it might be maybe an AR-15 or a LiDAR or radar gun that they check out temporarily at the beginning of their shift, and then they bring it back and they check it back in. So we can do that with Quartermaster. So I'm going to go to my Quartermaster screen here, and we're just going to imagine that Officer Hogan works nights, and he is going to check out some equipment. So he's going to check out a LiDAR. It looks like my LiDAR is no longer in the system, so I'm going to use this example here, a AR-15. So he's checking out this firearm. I know some departments, they assign it permanently or semi-permanently to officers who are using it. Some departments, you can check it out. So he's checking out this rifle, and so we'll assign that to him. And the process is just the same, right? So we can go and we can look up this officer and we can see that he has checked out this item here. He's got 3 items assigned to him. Again, not very many items. He's got a badge, and then he has a locker, and then he also has this AR-15. So we'll go back into his shift. It's time to return the item so that day shift can use it. So we will go ahead and do the return items tab in Quartermaster. And I'm going to select the South Patrol briefing room, which is where he checked it out. And we're going to click on him as well. And again, I could browse to that just as easily in the system. And then we were going to go and use the AR-15, and we're going to return that back to the system here. Just like that, it's back in. Now we can go in and we can scan the AR-15. We can see the information about that specific rifle. And then, of course, I can come in and I can do a history report on that. And we can see all of the transactions or the different people who have checked that item out and the locations where they've been checked out here. So we've got some different officers that have checked that out along the way. In case it gets lost or it gets broken or something turns up missing, that kind of thing. Really handy way to look for that and to also just kind of track your maintenance. All right. One other thing I wanted to show you before we kind of finish up here, and then I want to open it up for questions. Haven't talked too much about cars. I'm going to show you some examples of maintenance on vehicles. And also I wanted to share, one of the things that some departments struggle with is they bring in officers on sort of overtime, right? So they're understaffed, and so officer comes in. I know at my police department, you'd come in and your assigned vehicle is already being used because you're on a day off. With Quartermaster, you can come in and you could potentially look for all your spare cars. So I'm going to select spare here. Shows me that I have 1 of 3 in my query. And this would allow me in this example to come in and go, okay, I'm looking for a spare car so I can start my shift. I can see this car is in vehicle lot 1. This one's in vehicle lot east. And this one's in vehicle lot east. And I'm closest to 1. That's where my shift's going to be. It's in the north part of town. I'm going to go grab that car. So really, really handy way to keep track and to really make it easy and efficient for your officers to find what they're looking for when they come in. I'm going to do a quick search on our armored carrier here in the system. I can see I have some notes and some documents here. The notes show some of the maintenance that go with that. And then documents here, I can see that there are some photographs related to this particular vehicle and some maintenance records. All right, so we have Quartermaster as an application that you're seeing here. And you could set up Quartermaster in your police department and let officers access it directly. And we have permissions built in so that they can just come in and search and query and look for items if they want. You can also use Quartermaster to have it set up so that officers can order equipment if you want. Maybe they're running low on something. Maybe they need to request more Narcan, or they need to request a new first aid kit for their patrol car. You can actually set it up so that they can make those requests directly to the Quartermaster, and then he or she can send that out to the person that's requesting it. So this is the application. We also have the ability to get into Quartermaster with our web view, which is the web version of the same thing. So we're still searching the same database with WebView. The benefit of WebView is that this is not an application that's installed on computers in your police department, and it's not something that has to really be managed. You can access WebView on virtually any computer with a web browser. And so officers can come into WebView here. I need to refresh so I can get logged in here one more time. And they can come in and they can look for equipment if they want to, search for equipment if they need to, look for the equipment that's assigned to them. Just like we were seeing with this example of firearms, I can do a query of all the firearms in the system if I want to, if I have the permissions to do that, and get that same kind of field information, or all that important information, detailed information about the firearms in the system here. And it's set up the same way. So you got all the same fields in here. So in my case here, I have some active requests here. So I have requested some more Narcan. And so what I did to do that is I went into, as an officer, this is just an example here, I went in and I searched for Narcan in the system here. And let me find it here, and we'll do a quick query. And I can see as an officer, I'm not the Quartermaster, that we have 40 on hand in the police department. I can select that, and I can make a request. I can say, okay, please send it to me. I am Officer Hogan. And I can put in a note. I can put a case number if I wanted to, and then I could send that request. And what happens is, on the Quartermaster side, the person who's administrating the system, they can come in and they can use what's called the request monitor to keep track of those requests. So here I can see the two requests that have been sent. The one example is that I just put here from the Officer Hogan. And so I see that request as a Quartermaster here, and I can go in and query it, close out the request monitor, see what I have on hand, and then I could come in here and I could actually issue that directly out of Quartermaster, and then send it to him in an inter-office mail, or drop it off next time I'm where he's working at, the South Precinct or whatever. So really, really handy way to manage your assets and inventory. All right, I think that's everything. I want to actually ask Bruce if there's anything that I missed. I'm sure there are a few things there. And do we have questions at all? Craig?
Yep, we have a couple questions, and I have a couple points I wanted to add real quick. One is that, and you may have shown this and I missed it, but when you're issuing those UPC-based items where you have the quantity on hand field, when you issue out, it deducts the ones you've issued out from your quantity on hand automatically. And when things are returned, it increments or increases the quantity on hand according to what you've brought in or checked out. So that's helpful. Another point is that you can check out UPC items and unique items in the same transaction. So even though you showed it in two separate isolated transactions, you can combine them in one transaction. Also, if you want, you can have purchase triggered notification routines. So I work with an agency in Louisiana where the lieutenant who handles supply and equipment issuance, he has a triggered routine that sends him an email 30 days before somebody's firearm is to be, they're required to do a firearm qualification. He has another one that sends him a notice a couple weeks in advance when something is going to expire. So you can have those as well. Finally, I wanted to add that your locations in the Quartermaster system can be any place, anything, any person to which things are issued. So a location can be a person, like you've demonstrated. It can be a vehicle to which you are assigning a piece of equipment. It can be a facility where you're keeping track of the copy machines or the fire extinguishers, and your locations are rooms in the building or the training center or the chief's office, whatever it might be. It can be places where if you send a firearm back to the manufacturer or you send a LiDAR out for calibration or something, and those repair facilities or manufacturers are locations to which you're going to transfer things. Also, final locations, which means locations where when I move it here, like I sold it at auction or I destroyed it, if you want to keep those records in your Quartermaster system when you get rid of things, for example, department-owned firearms, even though you sell them all back to a gun shop and they're going to give you credit on some new AR-15s for the SWAT team or something, you probably want to keep those gun records in your system. So if it shows up in a homicide case in Houston, you probably want to be able to backtrack on what happened to that gun. So any of those places, people, things, facilities can be locations in the system. Do you have any thoughts on any of that before I move on to those questions?
No, that's great. I wanted to show, just in keeping with what you were saying about the reorder point, you can build a reorder point report. And here's an example that you can pull here. So out of my system, this shows me that I have some medical gloves that have a quantity on hand of 1, and another type of glove that quantity on hand of 5, and their reorder point is 10. So it just alerts us, lets me know in my system that it's time to reorder more of those. So let's go ahead to hit those questions.
Sure. Andrew had a question, and I think it's a great one, which is, hey, you mentioned that we could have a fleet management system. And I've seen other agencies where they want a body-worn camera system. So the body-worn camera people have their own system. Nobody else can go look at it or mess around with things in there. So those add-on applications, he wanted to know, is there a price tag for those, Steve?
Yeah, so if we wanted to do fleet alone, that would be a separate application. And so it would be a separate database, SQL database, and so you would just log in separately. And again, you would do that if you really didn't want to commingle the two things, and you wanted to track your fleet at a real detailed level. Let's imagine you were tracking all of the damage that's coming in, that's getting repaired, the maintenance, along with everything else that you could track with vehicles.
And Steve, as a person who handles sales, you have great discretion in working with agencies to try and deliver what they need within their budget. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. We're going to spend a lot of time doing a needs analysis to find out how you operate, what are your needs, and what we can do to help you. And of course, we never want pricing to be the sole reason an agency doesn't get our solutions. So we work really hard. I mentioned a department that I worked with that just recently came on board last month in Oregon, has 4 officers. And yeah, they had a tight budget for sure. And so we work really hard to, we really actually can flex our pricing based on whether you're LAPD or whether you're a smaller agency like that.
All right. Now, our last question that I'm seeing is from Christy, and she has a question that says, how do you search for a consumable item that has been returned and not reusable, like a broken flashlight to be destroyed? How can I go back and find that record, Steve?
So it'll actually show up in your system, and we can pull up those consumable items or consumed items. There is a way for us to actually purge them out of the system so that they're no longer in the system, but we can do that with, we can use a custom query, and we can also build a report if you wanted to have that available to you.
That's it for the questions I'm seeing. Craig, are you seeing any others?
No, I'm not. Sorry to pull myself off mute there. I am not seeing any additional questions unless some people are thinking of something. We'll give everybody a moment more here if they want to ask any questions or see something that didn't make sense to them. But if not, I think we can wrap this up if you guys are comfortable on your end with what you presented.
I have just a couple more things I want to say if we have a few folks still hanging in there with me. Wanted to just kind of mention, Craig talked about some of our other solutions. We have our evidence management system that manages your physical property room. That's called Evidence on Q, and it's built on the same platform as Quartermaster, as I mentioned before. We also have Digital on Q, which manages your digital evidence. And what's really neat about these two solutions is that you can actually track all of your evidence together, the retention settings, and when it's time to purge your evidence together, both your physical and your digital evidence in one place, which is super powerful. We also have another solution called FoundDrop, and this one's really important to me. I'm a former property crimes detective. One of my biggest challenges I faced when I was connecting victims with found and recovered stolen property. And this was even more difficult if the property didn't have serial numbers or unique characteristics. You know, as an example, how would you reunite a recovered stolen Dell laptop with a college student who desperately needs it for school? Well, we've developed FoundDrop to solve this disconnect between lost and recovered stolen property and their victims. FoundDrop enables property crime investigative units and evidence rooms to post their lost and found property on a department branded website for the community to view online. And I wanted to show you real quick what that looks like here. Here's a couple of colleges that are using FoundDrop. And, you know, on college campuses is a big deal. Trying to, I mean, they're losing stuff. Students are losing things, and things are getting stolen and then recovered on a daily basis. So this is really powerful. But there's more to it than that. FoundDrop has a powerful hit list feature for investigators to share stolen and recovered property with officers and detectives around the country via the secure cloud-based searchable database. This is super powerful because departments are really struggling in just communicating with other property crime detectives throughout the nation. So often property crime units are forced to communicate with each other using kind of this old-fashioned Baldo bulletins that are easily lost or email, right, which is really old school. FoundDrop's hit list is constantly looking for stolen property in the database, and it lets the investigators know when the stolen item is located. It gives them an automatic alert. And officers can also send the property crime victims with an invitation to complete their property inventory form to itemize their stolen property. So this is something that's really important. As a patrol officer, when you go out to a property crimes, a burglary, or a vehicle prowl, one of the things you have to do is you have to itemize all of that stolen property. And it usually starts with the victim providing you with it in either written format on a piece of paper, or it's typed up. And then the officer has to come back to the station and type it into the computer, or maybe Records does that. With API integration that we have, the supplemental property report can be merged with RMS. So we can send an invitation through FoundDrop to the victim to complete that property report themselves online. So they go in and type it out directly in FoundDrop. They associate pictures with it. This is going to save investigators an enormous amount of time, and it's also more accurate because the victim has a vested interest to being accurate and providing as much information as possible. We have victims that provide all kinds of detailed photos for police departments. So it's a win-win for police departments. So anyway, Evidence on Q, Digital on Q, and FoundDrop, we have information available in the handout section. So feel free to download that, and don't hesitate to contact us if you want more information about that. And that's all I have, Craig. I really appreciate everybody's time.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate it. Thank you for everyone that was here today. And we'll let everyone go. When we close out this webinar here, there'll be a brief survey at the end to let us know how we did, and most of all, how we can help you. There's just a few questions there. If you want additional information, if you want to see more, be sure to complete that survey and just give us some feedback and how we can improve and serve you better. All right, guys, thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. And until next time, bye-bye.